30 seconds early. Call the Easton Board of Education regular meeting September 12th, 2023 to order. Everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes. They look good to me.
Really good.
Very good. We'll go to item 3, public comment. Just raise, stand please, or come to the podium, or wherever you're comfortable. State your name and your street and town.
I'm Jada Akatib, and I live in Easton at 42 Tuckahoe Road. So as a parent, is it okay if I read?
Sure,
If I'm
absolutely.
reading? Okay.
Yeah,
So,
we
as a
keep it to a
parent-
couple of minutes. That's all.
Sure, no
We can,
problem.
So, okay.
As a parent of the community, I would really like to express my support for the increase in teacher salaries at SSES and Helen Keller. So year 9, as we all know, is made up of 3 areas: Easton, Reading, and the high school Region 9. However, although the teachers teach the same students throughout the years, they are all compensated differently. To me, the message is being sent to our teachers that if you work at the high school, you are more valued. Or if you work the same job in Easton and Reading, you're more valued in Reading as you are compensated more. This is unacceptable and unfair. As educators, none of us got into this profession for the money. However, feeling valued in our district is an important factor in where we work, and I hope ER9 will recognize this and make this fair across the tri-district. Next, Easton is also one of the lower paid districts in our district reference group and surrounding town. As a result, we are losing a number of amazing, experienced, and valuable teachers. It is imperative that these teachers get an increase in pay with these upcoming negotiations, or we will continue to lose them. Our teachers go above and beyond for our kids, and they should be valued and respected as other districts do for their teachers. As parents of this town, we really want the board to understand that parents fully support the increase in salaries for our teachers, and we see them as valuable members of our community. Also, as an educator myself, I do want to make the point that this summer I was lucky enough to be offered a job in Easton, Fairfield, and Milford. And although all 3 of them may have looked comparable on paper, it wasn't that way once offers were made. Both Fairfield and Milford offered me 4 steps higher on the pay scale. And then Milford went above and beyond, knowing that I was in special education and had a love for structured literacy. They offered to put me through a program that was almost $8,000. It was something that I just couldn't say no to. And leaving Easton was heartbreaking for me as my kids are there, but it was just something that I wanted to be able to do. And also it's not just that, it was the benefits were better as well through those 2 towns. I have also been lucky enough to work in Trumbull and Monroe, who also pay a lot more, but I will tell you, Easton is the best. Everywhere I've gone, it's just, you have support across the board from paraprofessionals, from the administrators, the building, everything that's in the building is just top notch. And I just hope that we can, if we want to be the best, we need to pay our teachers the best. I moved to this town because it was the best. And lastly, I do want to put in the support for our paraprofessionals as well. I'm noticing so much that there is a staff shortage in our school, and it's because of the pay. The paraprofessionals are doing things that nobody else wants to do. They can easily go work at McDonald's and make the same pay and have an easier job, but they do it because of the love of these children. And they do such an amazing job. And I was lucky enough to be a long-term substitute in Easton last year and got to see it firsthand. And I mean, they go above and beyond for these kids, and they're just not being compensated well. And just one more thing is that we're not able to keep lunch aides, we're not able to keep recess aides, and we're lucky enough that Kim and Michael go out there every day and help support and put themselves in that positions, but we're taking those resources away from our teachers. And so it is really important that if we could just give them a salary that is worth it for them, maybe we will be able to keep someone. So I hope that this helps, and you guys will at least consider that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Lou, please.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Lou DiPietro, 48 Chesterly Drive. My wife, Jessica DiPietro. We are the parents of a child on 504 plan, as some of you know. continuously being evaluated for special services. And we really want to thank the staff at SSES, Principal Fox Santora, the support staff, his 2 teachers so far in kindergarten and first grade who have really gone above and beyond. As the speaker said, everyone inside the school seems to have, his best interest and our children's best interest at heart. They've done everything they can to help him succeed so far. But we also understand that simply hiring a new special services director as we have, even though they may have already left a strong impression on us and many other parents, doesn't mean that what happened under the previous administration will be tidied up quickly. I work in sports media, some of you know, so I know what a rebuilding team looks like. There's always so much that a staff can do with the resources they're given. So to sort of piggyback the previous speaker, it was a little disheartening to see administration's recent letter noting all the vacant positions, and paraprofessionals are very understaffed. Seeing, there's a shortage of labor, shortage of paraprofessionals out there was kind of disheartening, to the points that the previous speaker made, that many of our paraprofessionals are paid a lot less than other towns, $4 an hour in some cases, which you can add up to the math over the course of a school year. And not only that, they also don't get paid for some of their training and continued professional development time, only the hours that the kids are in school. So, you're getting thrown into the fire with limited knowledge of how to fight it, and you don't even get anything more than that. It's just, here you go. Paras make the same wage or similar wages, sometimes lower wages as McDonald's, Target, and things like that. They have much more difficult jobs. On top of all that, we know that this happens with a school budget, that even though it's not just as easy as moving numbers around on a spreadsheet, we do give money back every year, it seems, to the town of Easton, some more than others. Last year, a lot more than others, which makes it wonder is, as these negotiations come up, can we do something to possibly reallocate some of these resources so that areas we have where we know that we have consistent surpluses, and maybe every year give back certain money from those budgets, move it around to some special education, paraprofessionals, try to compensate our teachers and our paras more. So as the previous speaker said, we don't lose talented and wonderful educators, wonderful paraprofessionals, wonderful people on top of all of that to other districts that simply pay more to do, what on paper is a similar job. Even as great as Easton schools are, as much as I can praise you as the board and the great job you all have done over the last few years, that I've noted as our child has been in school, and the staff at SSES so far, hopefully at Keller and Barlow as we move on. Again, we know budgets aren't simple math, and costs understandably fluctuate, but we also wouldn't expect school to work in the dark just because the light bill was too expensive and we ran out of money. So we don't want to see our kids who need the most help and are the most vulnerable have their flames extinguished just because we can't afford the matches, so to speak. So that's my thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Hi, I know some of you. My name's Amy Tragnese. I live at 14 Westwood Drive here in Easton. And I taught for 19 years at SSES, retired in 2020. So I'd like to talk just a little bit more about teacher pay from a retired teacher's perspective. Many of you know that I taught visual art at Samuel Staples from the fall of 2001 until June of 2020. In 2001, my own children were attending SSES, and I was quite happy to have the same schedule as them. I was in a neighboring district, and Easton would shut down for snow, and I would not, and my husband would have to go to work, and I would have, and it was a mess. Anyway, over the years, I did notice that quite a few Easton teachers and paraprofessionals would take new jobs in Reading or other surrounding districts. Why? So the scuttlebutt would be more pay, better benefits. So I was like, what is going on here? So I got involved with the teachers union so I could learn a little bit more because I really didn't know. And I learned that it was true. In our tri-district, Easton's teacher contracted salaries were a lot less than our sister districts, Reading and Joel Barlow. Even though I was happy at my job in Easton, I put my resume out there and interviewed for a few jobs. For art teacher, technology coach positions, but by that time in my career, I was way too expensive and way too qualified. And I remained at SSES until retirement rolled around, happily, I might add. So going back to 2001 for a moment, when I made that lateral move from that neighboring district to Easton, the teacher pay scales were pretty equal. The benefits were comparable. Imagine my dismay when I retired in 2020 and learned that my full-time salary step in my former district was over $20,000 more per year. Over those 19 years that I taught in Easton, the salaries did not keep up with other districts. And as a side note, if anyone doesn't know this, Connecticut teachers do pay into the retirement system with a percentage of their pay every pay period. And am I upset that I left that other district? No. I loved working in Easton and I ended a great career there. On the other hand, I'm quite unhappy that I'm missing out on 75% of that $20,000 every year of my retirement. Wouldn't you? Teacher salary is important while you are working and when you retire. Please consider better compensation for our teachers and our staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Lara Fay. I live at 345 Wilson Road. I'm here tonight to address the staffing and budget shortages in the special education department here in Easton. These staffing shortages impact the children of Easton because they prevent the students from receiving necessary services to help them be successful in their social, emotional, and academic pursuits. The lack of staff also causes added stress and anxiety for the students, families, and existing staff at school. I would ask the Board of Education and Board of Finance to look carefully at the budgets and resources allocated to the special education department so that well-qualified educators want to come to work in our district and so that they feel secure in their jobs and are fairly compensated for their education and experience. The schools are the jewels of Easton and must be treated as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. No additional public comment. We'll move to board member comment. Ken?
No comments.
No good.
No
Taking notes. Thank you.
Nothing.
Just
John.
briefly,
Yeah.
I just want to thank everyone for coming and for making such thoughtful comments. And I think we appreciate sort of your position. And we are trying to build inside of our negotiations a fair and frugal sort of approach that we can do the right thing for our teachers and for our students. And thank you very much for everyone for showing up and spending your time here, as well as all the time you spend in the classrooms.
I'm good.
Good. Yeah, no, I would echo John's comments and it's been a while since we've had members of the public here. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, honestly. But we do hope you guys come back, with the good and the tougher comments, right? We want all of that. We want the feedback. We absolutely do. Jason and I, with the help of everybody in the room and then some, presented the budget last spring to the Board of Finance. And it was the first time in 10 years, 12 years that we didn't have really hardly any members of the public. And again, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I know support for the budgets is a big thing. And frankly, we got a good budget. We got, I think, the appropriate budget passed at the first sort of run through with the Board of Finance. It was a good increase from a percentage standpoint, both balancing what the town can pay and what the schools need and the students need. So just, I think engagement, your thoughts, your comments, emails, it's all welcome. So thank you again. Moving right along here. Administrative reports, Dr. McKinnon.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for coming. We have reports from our administrative team this evening, and we also have reports from our principals, and we normally start with our schools. So with that, Kim, would you like to share a report of how things are going at Samuel Staples?
But thank you all, Sharon. I know on behalf of both Easton, both the Helen Keller and San Diego, I know that the teachers and the paraprofessionals truly appreciate both your inspired and thoughtful, heartfelt support of their work and their salaries. And I know it was heard, so thank you. I wanted to share with you that summer 2023 was really busy at San Staples. I have a long list of staff that we hired. In pre-K 3, we hired Mrs. Susan McClough. In kindergarten, Miss Sam Dunn. In grade 5, math science, Mrs. Diana Basilico. We have an entirely new music department. We have Miss Olivia Delape and Miss Anastasia Miller. We have another new physical education teacher, Mrs. Maura Brum. We have a brand new multilingual specialist, Mrs. Maria Ribeiro Garcia, that is shared K-8 through 4 different schools between Easton and Reading. We have a grade 3 special education teacher, Ms. Claire Conway. A grade 4 special education teacher, Mrs. Katie Bundy. A grade 5 special education teacher, Mrs. Tracy Alley. We have a board certified behavior analyst, Mrs. Jennifer Schumacher. We have a brand new school resource officer from the Easton Police Department, Easton Police Officer John Asick. We have a general education year-long intern from Fairfield University, Andrea Lawner, and a special education year-long intern, Alyssa Charlton. In paraprofessionals, we have a new recess supervisor, Ben Duran from Fairfield Prep. We have a recess supervisor named Elizabeth Osick. We have a multilingual paraprofessional working alongside Mrs. Ribeiro Garcia and Elizabeth Houlihan. We do have some vacancies still. We are still in need of a cafeteria supervisor. So Mr. Brownstein and I are still taking turns covering the cafeteria. We had another reading paraprofessional who resigned the day before school started. So we are looking for another reading paraprofessional. We have an evening custodian that we need to replace. We have a kindergarten assistant we need to replace because she moved over to be a one-on-one BT for special education department. We have multiple special education vacancies that I think Catherine Matz will be talking about later in her presentation. I shared with you back in June, probably, and if not, I apologize, that the 2024 Easton Teacher of the Year is the Samuel Staples first grade teacher. This is Callan Chatfield. And I'm very happy to present to Dr. McKinnon for central office. This is Callan Chatfield's photograph for central office. Callan Chatfield. There's a photo at Samuel Staples and a photo for her personally. Callan has been teaching at Samuel Staples 20 years, all at first grade. She is, first of all, one of the most enormous and warm, student-centered individuals in that building. Always happy, always kind. There is not a student who is madly in love with her. So dedicated to the young child, so deserving of this wonderful honor and recognition. And what's so wonderful is that you are selected from your colleagues, which is such a wonderful honor. So we are delighted to celebrate Callan. We are delighted to welcome 19 new students to Samuel Staples in grades 1 through 5. Something that is new that we're excited. Well, except it might be a stretch. Kindergarten has returned to the cafeteria, much to Mr. Brownstein's chagrin. The kindergarten students had been eating in their classrooms due to the pandemic. And to be completely honest with you, having students in 1 through 5 so spread out and not having to have that overlap, the behavior was wonderful. But there were some drawbacks, and they pressed hard and for many years, and Mr. Brownstein finally acquiesced. So they have returned to the cafeteria. The kindergarten kids love it. And there it is. So they're in the cafeteria, and the kindergarten paraprofessionals are swirling around trying to say, we eat first and we socialize second. And there you have it. So the other thing that they wore Mr. Brownstein down is staggered bus dismissal. So for all of my years, I have done cars, Mr. Brownstein does buses. And he likes it a certain way. He likes all of the buses there. He dismisses all of the children so that he can be 100% certain that all of our little darlings are on the bus and no one this is the bus and then we leave. But in doing that, when you are the last run of all of the schools, invariably the buses arrive late. The children are last to leave the classroom, very sad hour. Parents are not happy when their kids are getting home late. So he was getting it from teachers and from parents. And finally, Mr. Brownstein and I had a very long conversation and I said, you need to give this up. So he gave it up. So now what we're doing, we are calling buses 5 at a time. And of course, we board the kindergarten students first. 5 buses are boarded, 5 buses leave. 5 more buses are called, 5 buses leave. We keep doing this so the teachers are very, very happy. All parents, except for the last 3 buses, are very, very happy. There are kids missing the buses every single day, and those parents are not very, very happy. But I think that's part of the growing process. My hope is that we experience that once. They will learn, they will listen, and it will be better. So there you have it. I wanted to share that if you still have not seen the front of our school, that stunning garden, please do so, because on Thursday, the 14th, we are having, get this, an SSES garden vine cutting ceremony. And of course, all the dignitaries are there. So if you're not going to be there, shame on you. That is exciting. And the other exciting thing I wanted to share. Apparently, we are the only school that did not have really an official logo. We've had a very commercially, what do you call it, open source dolphin that's not very attractive. And as you know, we have adopted winter since 2010. So this summer, we hired with student activity funds a graphic designer. And my request was to create 2 versions of winter that we could splash everywhere and everywhere, because I wanted the students to vote on 2 different versions. No adults are to weigh in on this. So you have in front of you, I'm going to put one on this side, one on this side. These are the 2 versions, and they are at 75% completion. And we shared them with the students. At first, we shared the story of Winter, who she was and why she's so special, and why she's adopted, and why we continue to pay the Clearwater Marine Aquarium. And tomorrow we will announce the winner. We have 588 kids, and they have all voted. Beautiful.
It's wonderful.
Revote.
No one else.
Kids at heart.
And I'm not getting a scoop either.
Same thing, same thing.
You're trying to trick.
It's been a wonderful beginning. I have to pick Michael Brownstein up every afternoon, but it's been a wonderful beginning. Any questions for me?
Tim, you mentioned, sorry, anybody?
Go ahead.
Okay, there you go.
You mentioned 19 additions. Is that sort of enrollment last year? I mean, 613 this year, was 606 last year, I thought.
I feel like we're exactly the same when we left in June.
Okay,
It is the weirdest thing. When we left in June, I looked at it because I kept it on my bulletin board. But you're asking me.
I was just
September
curious
last
if
year?
we were really up truly 19, that's a lot in 1 year. I mean, there's
Feel
not,
like it's
Well,
wrong.
It's 6 withdrawals, so it's another 13, right?
yes, I see that, preschool, 25, is that low? Or is it usually 30?
What did I send you this morning? This afternoon?
25, that doesn't,
I gave it to Dr. McKinnon earlier today.
Okay, this says 25, your sheet says 25. I can recall 30 in years past,
I've
but.
got 22.
That would normally save some.
Well, those,
But remember, we have to save spots because of birth of 3,
Because they-
and
Right.
it rises over the course of the
Yeah,
year.
that's right, okay.
are your 90 kindergartners what you had hoped for or what you expected?
In terms of numbers or in terms of delightfulness?
Delightfulness, delightfulness is assumed.
They are
Just-
charming. Little Ollie Weibel has impressed me.
Of course.
It's just like the other ones. Happy?
The other one.
Lovely. Yeah, and the numbers are good too.
It's 18 a class. 17, 18
Yeah,
a class.
I'm sorry, I think they are all 18.
Okay.
What has been your take? I know literally Amplify basically started today, but I know you mentioned a little bit during the curriculum committee meeting, we're gonna talk a little bit more, but just how are you feeling or how are teachers feeling?
So I sat in on the training. The skills part of it, I thought was superb. And I thought the teachers did not find the shift from Foundations Integrity and what is offered in Amplify CKLA to be a huge shift. The knowledge was huge. Some of them I saw, and it could have just been what I picked up. But the amount of nonfiction that I saw and the topics that the students were reading seemed to be really rich, and some of it not stuff that I thought kids would connect to. And so I had asked the question, oh, excuse me, what is the ratio from fiction to nonfiction? And she couldn't answer the question for me per grade level. So that is really something that I'm interested in learning from teachers and students. How interested are they in the material? Because we do get kids who have particular interest in nonfiction material all of the time, as we do kids who really only prefer fiction. And then there are kids who have no preference and just find everything you give them so fascinating. Holly, for example, right? But there were some things I went, oh, are they going to find that interesting? But it could just be, I've not seen that kind of topic in those young, in the books that I've seen young publishers produce for young kids. So that's what I'm waiting to say.
So it's not kept in underpants that they're
No.
reading. My daughter likes to read.
No.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you can, Steve.
Moving right along.
Evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So at Keller, we really hit the ground running, just a couple weeks ago. It seems like it's been, both a month and only a couple of days at the same time. But, we had a terrific start to the school year. I want to give shout outs to Mrs. Moore and Mrs. Cahalan, who really worked on the schedule, getting all the technical parts of the schedule together. Also, we used Mr. Crawford this year. We used to use Mr. Sather, where we come in and do kind of the counseling approach to scheduling, where he would look at the classes and say, what are the groups going to look like? Who's going to work together? Who are friends? Who are not friends? So Mr. Crawford took all of our notes from our transition meetings in the spring, came in and kind of rejiggered some of the classes. So we had some groups, the kids were really well connected. And that was just terrific work for him to do this summer. And we want to make sure we, and Mrs. Rudy also did her first like full year of ordering everything, and she learned how demanding that process is over the summer. And so that was great. So shout outs to all of them. Teachers came back, and the first thing we did with them was create a hall of hope down the hallway in the 7th and 8th, between 7th and 8th grade. We got paper all over that, and the teachers wrote what their hopes for themselves, what their hopes for their colleagues, and most importantly, what their hopes for their students were. We have the display of that outside, right outside the office right there. If you just walk straight down the hallway, the first display on the left. I'd invite you all to take a look at that. It's beautiful sentiments that they came into the school year with, which are going to help design and our theme for the year, which I haven't finished quite creating yet. We also met with all of the students in class meetings, and we really talked to them a lot about what their legacy is. That's kind of our theme with the students this year. We put the question to them: in 30 years, when someone picks up a Keller yearbook, what would, if someone turned to your picture, what would they say about you? And that was kind of the theme we walked with. So we wanted them to create their legacy, and that legacy question will come back at graduation and other points during the year as well. So so that's kind of our theme with them. We also had a great open house with the parents last week.
Thursday went wonderfully. We have a new projector installed up in the cafeteria, so we can really project and use the whole screen without having something on the floor. That was kind of a little bit of the extra money we were able to kind of from the ViewSonic, we were able to have them install that properly, so we're not kind of dancing around the podium and stuff like that. So that was great. That the theme of that was the adolescent brain. You know, Mrs. Moore and I are passionate about learning about the brain and how synapses and fire and the amygdala hijack and all things like that. Trying to give parents some reassurance when their young adolescent freaks out on them, that it might not be, you know, dinner's fault that they're super excited about that. Also, one of our things we got some communications out on, we really wanted to work with Easton Police Department about getting more students onto the buses. We still had that kind of a little bit of a hangover, if you will, from COVID, where we were getting about 100 to 130 drop-offs a day. And out of 300 students, 300 students, that's a lot. And it backs out, if anybody's been out on Sport Hill Road when we're doing arrival time, it can be a real safety situation. Easton Police has been amazing in helping us out, but they're not contracted with us to help and support that traffic. They do that because there's a need and they're available. But there are only 2 patrols in the morning. So if there's a call somewhere, they're both there, and that mucking up can really get pretty bad. Buses can't get in, buses can't get out. It's a whole kind of thing. So we've been really trying to push, and Captain Arnold and I made a video about why we want to get the kids back onto the bus, and the courier's got a story. It's about the drop, about that need to do that and all the benefits of riding the bus. So the last 3 days we've had around 40 instead of 100. So that's a good improvement. I don't know if it was my intervention or people are just ready to get their kids onto the buses. So it's good. From enrollment point of view, we're a little bit low. We're lower than we probably will be for the next several years, and lower than we were in the last couple, but we're right where we thought we would be. Our class sizes are 19.2 this year. That's an average, but just to illustrate that, we have our largest classes are in the 7-8 compacted math, which have 25 students in them. And Algebra 2 has 2 classes of 24. So Dr. McKinnon will like this one. We have 3 students also going to honors geometry up at Barlow. So all in all, we have 52 students who are in advanced classes, advanced more than grade level. So about 54% of our students in 8th grade are on track to be stay above grade level standards as they go into high school. Our smallest classes is Math 8 with 12 students in it. One of those classes in our Spanish 7 class also has 12 students in it. And that's just because of sometimes kids can't be in the same classes together, and it kind of makes some classes bigger or smaller. For FPAs, our largest class is PE, of which you would expect, because we double up on the PE classes. We have classes of 32, 33, and 34. And our smallest is grade 6 strings with 5 students. So we really like to get that strings program kind of a little bit bolstered over the next few years. So we're trying to develop some goals for that. We have a number of new hires, all in the mental health team. I think you'll remember from our June report, we lost all of our mental health. Our entire mental health team is new this year. That's 2 counselors, school psychologists, and social worker. One of our counselors is on maternity leave this year. That's Sarah. Sarah is out for the year, but we have Kristen Burnham back, who's filled in for her twice previously during leaves. So it's great to have Kristen back for the full year. We have Dominica Pellegrini, who was not new to the district. She was working at Staples and over at RES. They were splitting duty there, but she's now our full-time school psychologist. She's wonderful, and we're so happy to have her. We're really happy to welcome back Nicholas Willett. Nicholas Willett is our new academic mentor. He takes Tim Sager's position. He was an intern. He served his internship here 10 years ago. Went off, was hired by some dingy town down south in Canaan. And when we were, they developed some good people, and they come back home. We come back home, right? So we're really excited to welcome Nick back home. When he saw the posting, he's like, the only place I would ever leave in Canaan for was Easton and Tower. So I'm very excited to be back. We love having him on our team. And Bailey Kean is coming from Camden. She's been a social worker in Camden for a number of years. And she is happy to join us as our new social worker. We still also do have some para openings. We need a math para. Our math para from last year was a certified teacher. She got a job as a teacher, which is wonderful, but that left an opening. It was kind of late in the summer. We've had some applicants, but they haven't taken the job yet. That is due to pay, I'm afraid to say. One turned down the job today because of low pay. We also have a 0.5 math para position that's open. It was grant funded last year. And it's no longer grant funded, so we lost that position. So math is, when we do our data report next month, you'll see math is our greatest area of need. We've had some great growth there, but it's still our biggest area of need, and we're 1.5 lower than we were last year for this year in support. So that's something to keep your eye on as we kind of go through budget season, because I'd like to restore those, if not bolster those even further for next year. As well. We have an amazing facilities update that I know Mr. D'Agostino and Dr. McKinnon will be going through that. But we have everything from new water fountains and water flows all over the building, including a water fountain in the cafeteria, which we've never had. It's unusual. You think you'd have the first place you put one, right? It's actually the nutritional guidelines require us to have one there, so that's help us get that. And this is providing very helpful in finding grant money for that and help us with that. But also Public Works helped us install several new bottle fillers around, replacing older fountains. New windows, windows not fogged up anymore. The left side over by Randy. You can actually see for those. So we replaced those 2 windows over there, and gutter work. Some new whiteboards are right behind you. There are some other chalkboards, and several other good projects have gone through the new sign boards, of course. But Mike will get more into that. Then we'll spend time on for you. So.
Any questions? Yes.
I have a question about the math teachers. So you said we're down 1.5 positions, and we've also implemented a new math curriculum, 6 through 8. So how is that? Can you
Math-
talk to?
math
about that?
Not for powers, yeah.
Math pairs, right?
Math powers. So those are support people, and the people who are pushing into math classes and helping out kids in the class. The Desmos launch has been good. I wrote a really long dissertation about the implementation of programs in schools, and we're ahead of the curve as far as I can tell. You know, the program has its own glitches. You know, we're learning new technology, how to use the new boards, and that is going as smoothly as it can be. We're kind of really at the technical point of that. We haven't quite gone into the kind of professional learning about how we can best use these devices. It's kind of that watching the nerves of trying to use it, not break it. Everybody's afraid of breaking them, you know. Even Dr. McKinnon and I this afternoon were playing around with some of them to make sure we could cast properly and things like that. But Desmos has done a nice launch. Teachers are learning some nuances. You know, I was in with Mrs. Broder today, and she was doing a coordinate graph. Desmos brought up a question about coordinate graphing. She tried to bring up graph paper. She couldn't quite find where to get graph paper. So there's like some like professional learning. Like she went to Google and found it, of course, but it was like, you know, a few lost minutes there. But that's normal for a new program that's being implemented. We plan on our October 6th PD to have some professional learning with the Desmos company and do some tech workshops. We're going to do like an ed camp kind of style again on the 6th, where teachers will have some choices. So those who want more work on the boards will get that. So people who want to how to bring in multimedia to their lessons, we're going to have some work on that, plus Desmos and some other things like that. Dr. Pearson and I have been, and Jenna Maris will bring ready and working on exactly what kind of options that people will have. But I'd say we're ahead of the curve. So answer your question, Lisa. But we are in the first phase of implementing something, so there'll be some learning as that happens.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Very good. Thank you all.
So I know you had a curriculum meeting prior to this meeting this evening. Dr. Pearson Hugo does have some highlights for you from a curriculum report. Jen?
So I won't read my entire report to you, but I just want to bring your attention to a few things. This report summarizes all of the summer work that occurred and a few highlight areas. At some point soon, we will share with you more information about our new year 9 teacher evaluation pilot. This is a really critical area of our focus, because the more that we can give effective and timely feedback to our teachers, they can in turn change instructional practices to improve student experience and ultimately student achievement. So we are really happy to be piloting something this year, which is aligned to the Connecticut core of teaching, which is something that's been constant in the state of Connecticut for many, many years. And a highlight of our pilot is that it includes a lot of informal, non-evaluative feedback. So as opposed to the sort of hoop that teachers have jumped through for many, many years of the one big formal observation, or if you're non-tenured, it could be more than one formal observation. Most of our feedback will be non-evaluative, but there will be a lot of it. So teachers will expect to see evaluators in their classrooms much more often to really take a look at what's happening and then provide them very specific feedback aligned to content, aligned to instructional methods. So Jason and I will be sharing more information about that with you in the future.
Is there a number, Stephanie?
A number of what?
A number of informal observations?
No, there are many informal observations. The formal observations for the evaluative observations, if you are non-tenured,
Right.
they will have no, you misspeak. If you are non-tenured, you will have one formal observation that includes a complete cycle. This is going to seem unusual, but then for the non-tenured teachers, they receive 2 to 3 that are informal. And the difference between formal and informal has to do with the length of the visit and whether it comes with a complete cycle. So a formal observation includes a pre-observation visit. Tell me when I'm going to be seeing in your classroom, conduct the actual observation. Oh, here it is. Dr. McKinnon and I have been making the rounds to these presentations in schools. And then a post visit. So let's talk about what I observed. Let's unpack that together. The real focus of this pilot includes a whole lot of non-evaluative. So this is just an example. The visual gives you an idea that most of our feedback will be non-evaluative and specific to the teachers. So we are creating a form that will ultimately be an app where we can give people really timely feedback in some specific areas. Are they creating an environment for intellectual risk-taking? Do they have clear learning intentions, learning targets?
Is this coming from the state or is this coming from?
It's coming from the state. The state has not formalized the expectations, but we do know that by the end of this year, we will need to have a revised plan ready to submit to them. So we really got out ahead of this because we started working on this last year. And now being able to run a pilot is going to give us a lot of good information about what's working and not working. So then we can revise what we're doing over the course of the year and ultimately submit to the state at the end what we wanted to include. But it is coming from the state. It's a real shift in terms of, you know, over a decade ago, when it all had to do with the federal funding connected to Race to the Top monies and the metric and the accountability. And this focus really has to do with more differentiated feedback. That's a 1-point metric as opposed to 4 points.
Got it.
I would say that the framework, the components come from the state, but we really are putting a different spin and we're emphasizing certain things, and we still have autonomy over the indicators that we pick that we want to focus on. For example, here are some of the indicators, and now's not the time to go deep into this. We talked a little bit about this at convocation, but the idea is that we link the indicators. We're actually going to develop a data collection tool, and we're going to link the indicators and the information that we get from our walkthroughs and the dashboard, and we're going to be able to share kind of the progress towards how we're doing on each of those indicators at the district level and publicly, because it's aggregate information. And so the pieces from the state are pretty standard, but there are some things that we're doing which are quite innovative, focusing on coaching and some really good conversations we're going to have with our teachers.
And so I won't go through all the other items in my report, although I'm certainly happy to answer questions. And some of the conversation that we were having about staffing, in particular the area of math, we submitted, both Easton and Reading, submitted a competitive grant application to go after what the state is calling high dosage math tutoring that's being made available in students grades 6 through 9. So it is a competitive grant. So we're not sure whether we will be funded, but we certainly submitted an application that would it required districts to partner with an approved agency selected by the state. And so we're looking at providing the students additional math tutoring, again, that would be a support, that would be supported through straight curriculum.
What does that look like? Is that a person, two people?
It would be a company, so it would be a whole team of people would be assigned to us. And then I think the way that I had it set up for the middle school level was that it was going to be before or after school. I'd have to go back to the specifics of what I submitted. We looked really carefully at what we thought would work best and catch the most number of students.
Is that only for the middle school?
It's for the middle school and grade 9. And grade would include 9th grade, high school. Yeah, and if I will hear back in October regarding that.
Stephanie, I'm not expecting an answer, but a decade ago, you made a wonderful presentation about why we needed to have Spanish in the grade school.
Yes.
And it was going to improve learning in general, but it was also going to give the kids a running head start. So by the time they got to high school and beyond, they would be farther ahead than if we started this in middle school, which was, at least that was my language art experience, my foreign language experience. So given where we are today, is there any metric to be able to see?
I'm going to give you an honest answer.
Did we, okay, an honest answer would be fine.
The Spanish program, as it's designed, is called a PLES program, which means foreign language in the elementary schools. It is designed to lead to proficiency in the target language, in this case, Spanish. We are not implementing it as it's designed because we simply don't have the staffing. That has nothing to do with budget funding. This really has to do with time that's available in the elementary school schedule, and then our ability to maintain people who are less than 1.0. So there was a time when we had 1.5 Spanish teachers at Samuel Staples Elementary School. If we were going to implement a PLES program with fidelity, we would need to more than double the amount of contact time that we currently are providing. So my honest answer is that the Spanish program we are providing to our elementary school students is a wonderful thing, and I certainly don't want to discontinue it. It is functioning more as enrichment, and it allows students to get excited about language learning. So there are a lot of positive aspects of providing early exposure to another language.
Right.
And I do believe that it will make our students eager to advance their studies in languages as they grow older. At one time when the program was newer, I was testing the students using a benchmark assessment called the APPLE, which is out of ACTFL, which is what we use at the high school level for the seal of biliteracy. It made some of our kids cry. It's a very challenging assessment, and I was doing it more for program measurement rather than student measurement. I wanted to see if we were making the proficiency gains that the program was designed to make. And we only gave it to a sampling of students in 5th grade and a sampling of students in 8th grade. I would like to go back to implementing that APPLE assessment without the tiers. And again, to look at it as a barometer of program effectiveness, because I do think it's worthwhile just being more transparent about what our Spanish program is all about.
Right.
And why we're providing it. Because when I presented this to you over a decade ago, it was certainly with the hope that it would provide a foundation of proficiency.
So yeah, I would just say, I mean, I do think, are we asking the right question? Is the question like, how much gains are they making? Or is the question like, what are the actual goals of the program? Because it sounds like 10 years ago, the goals were different.
Right.
And it's okay if the goals are different now, and we're just clear about that.
Sure.
Because I do think, I mean, I've had 2 kids who have taken Spanish, one who will eventually, and just loves everything. He's joyful. But I will say there's the value, you know, my kids are coming home with some speaking knowledge, but also cultural knowledge, and being able to talk about different parts of the country where Spanish is the native language, talking about many different things that they weren't exposed to with not going to that class. So
yeah,
I do think we should just be careful if everything has to be tied to their performance in the language of speaking Spanish, because we also know the research of foreign language exposure is good for brain flexibility and other content areas. So I just want to be careful that we don't implement an assessment that is highly stressful for very little, because we're saying, oh, the goals should be this, that were our goals 10 years ago and not necessarily what our goals are today. So
No, thank you for that. No, I'm not diminishing the value at all of what we're doing, because I think that it's absolutely valuable. I know that Michael Brownstein and I have had lots of conversations about scheduling it in a way that is designed to have the maximum effect. And that effect is not just measured in proficiencies, right? I do appreciate that clarification. It also has to do with exposure to cultures. If you look at the actual standards, it's a lot more than just their ability to be able to write and speak in the language, right? Their communication.
I'm very happy with it just being English. But I just went back, was thinking about this and saying, 10 years ago, we had this discussion, and where are we today, and how does, how's it working?
My informal assessment from spending some time with some kindergarten children is that they love Spanish. They love the teacher, they love speaking Spanish, they love learning Spanish. And
That's great.
that's the student's point of view that I've been able to get.
That's worth the price of admission.
Any other? This sort of popped out of me, the Easton Reading grade K through 8 math. We had 3 math specialists and then 5 teachers from Samuel Staples, Reading Elementary 3, and we didn't have anybody from HKMS, and it was 5 days.
K through 8 math.
That's K to 5.
Oh, you
Oh,
shouldn't
it
say
says
K.
K8, but I'm. but it
Does it say
says-
K to? Only-
K
Oh,
two.
right, so so. That's interesting, that doesn't, okay, so Eastern Maine K through 8 math. Oh, no, so the next page says grade 6 through 8 math, so that's my typo that I wrote K through 8, because that should say K through 5, and then the next page
There you
says.
go.
6 through 8.
Jason knew it
Thank
before we
you.
even
So
had
you
to
caught
read
the
it.
typo.
Okay.
I did read it
I
wrong.
fixed the
I was
typo.
wrong.
The Kelly teachers did indeed,
Okay.
so I was thinking, I know they participated, why isn't that?
That should be.
And it was sort of gonna go back to the budget. I don't wanna go back to the budget, but I had a question for Steve before Steve left, and I forgot to ask it. The performance, the personal improvement project, excuse me, the PIP. Who's leading that for the 8th grade?
Sure. Alpha Gale, the library media specialist, is going to be the kind of overseer of the PIP project. She went and got some additional training this summer
Okay.
with Maria Frederick, who's also leading it over, who's the library media specialist over at John Reed. The difference between the two is, Maria over at John Reed is going to be teaching those classes to those students as like an extra FPA. We're trying a little bit different model. We're gonna be doing it through advisory, using some of our extended learning time to do that. So we have a real focus to that. We have the goal of Barlow Palooza. I don't know what ER9 Palooza, whatever word. As being the place where those will be published. That'll be the final display. That's the goal line, as it were.
Right.
So we're kind of working backwards. We're looking at launching this formally right before Christmas break. Actually, we're doing some preliminary stuff. And then really hitting the gas from January through early May. We've kind of worked it out how many lessons we think we need with the kids. There's a lot of independent study involved with that, so we're going to be identifying some of the extended ELT periods, or extended learning time periods, for kids to do independent work, and then getting coached by their advisors in small groups, so 8 or 9 kids to a teacher.
Great.
So we did a nice model. We hope.
Perfect, awesome.
This came from our strategic plans when we asked those 2 key questions, and the data revealed that our students wanted more independence, wanted to pursue their interests, and that led to more experiences and so on. So,
Yeah, more information on that topic, it was in the June report.
yeah, and so that's in it. Yeah, and that's we put in our budget related. So
Yeah,
it's exciting.
okay. Any other administrative reports?
Yes, there is. We're going deep. So I think now's the time that we should introduce Catherine Max, who is our new pre-K to 12 special education director. We hired Catherine this summer. There was a committee. We had members of this board on the committee. We're very excited that Catherine is joining us. I knew Catherine when I was the assistant superintendent in New Fairfield, and she was a supervisor. and I left the district. But you stayed and became the director of special education in New Fairfield. So you have a lot of experience. You've hit the ground running. And tonight you're going to kind of share your impressions. We'll talk a little bit about staff because we did hear about some staff vacancies. And it hasn't all been smooth sailing for Catherine. She's very pragmatic and a problem solver. But she has noticed some things that we need to work on, which is good. Because this was part of our ER9 strategic plan in special education. We did unveil our strategic plan for all areas, as we've been talking about for the last 18 months. But one of the things we wanted to do was to create an ER9 strategic plan for special education. We talked a little bit about this at the tri-board meeting, but there is a lot of information here and a lot of focus areas on leadership and systems, communication and family engagement, learning environment, special programs, operations, and so on. And you can see one of our very first action items, which we can check off as 100% complete, is conduct a search for a new special education director, centralize the director of special education, meaning bring it down to central office, restructure, and so on. So what we're going to do with this is build it so that it looks like our strategic priority website. And then when we get it to that point, because it's still in the working phase, then we're going to share it with our stakeholders and our families and ask for input. But we started with focus groups last year for maybe 3 or 4 months. And so it took us a lot of work to get to this strategic plan. And there are a lot of, as you can see here, a lot of actions that we need to take. We haven't gone into a lot of detail with these yet with you, but that's our plan. And so Catherine, take it away.
Yes.
And welcome.
Thank you, everybody. I have gotten the warmest welcome I could possibly imagine. I've been so heartened by the community involvement and support for special education. Just hearing that tonight was lovely. I have hit the ground running and have been running and running and running. I think I've spent more time in the buildings probably than in central office at this point. Not having an Easton supervisor in place obviously has needed a lot of my attention to make sure the tasks for that role are being fulfilled. But overall, I would say the opening of school went very well, keeping in mind we do have quite a number of open positions, which has been a huge challenge. Overall, very well. I did want to talk a little bit about some of the bumps in the road. If we don't acknowledge the challenges that we have, we're not going to be able to address them. Very consistent with the priorities in your strategic plan that was developed prior to me coming on board. The organization piece and the systems piece is definitely impacting all 3 districts, specifically in Easton. Putting aside the openings for the moment, I just wanted to share some examples with you where you can see kind of where that's impacting efficiencies and how we're going about our business. And actually, one of my first questions is, I see this is our board packet. I do know for a fact that the special ed report was generated and sent somewhere, and yet I don't see it in here, right? So this is just an example of me kind of going about the business of my job and making sure I'm picking up on these things that have to be cleaned up. Couple other examples. Now that we have to use the CT SEDS platform for 504s, I realized very quickly I had to pull the 504 coordinators in and provide them a training on data cleanup as well as generating meeting notices correctly. That's all just part of the flow of information. If you don't set it up from the beginning, it's just barrier after barrier and frustration as you try to set those up. Overall, CT SEDS data cleanup, making sure that everyone has the right permissions level to do 504 plans and IEPs. Extremely urgent at the beginning of the school year to make sure teachers have those documents in their hands. I happened to notice we have a very convoluted system of using our calendars to set up meetings. I'm actually meeting tomorrow with all 3 special services secretaries to clean that up, come up with a consistent process that's more efficient. Today I was in a Zoom meeting where we all got booted off after 40 minutes because it was set up with the wrong host. It was okay. It was okay. But these are just some things I'm coming across. Some really big ones that have been quite urgent. Now that we are in the fall of 2023, we are 3 years out from the return to school from COVID. So COVID shut down the schools in March of 2020. We came back in person in the fall of 2020. All of the IEP triennial reviews that were due that spring, we got a little pass. We came back to school in September and we conducted all of those evaluations. Well, they're on a 3-year timeline. So it's 3 years from then. And what I noticed is because there isn't currently a really nice district-wide overview of structures to look at that data, it didn't really flag for anyone that we were going to roll into the 2023 school year with a laundry list of triennial evaluations and eligibility determinations to make. So when I say we hit the ground running, it's me and it's the whole department. Everyone has been working really hard. Everyone's pulling together. The team is extraordinarily professional and skilled, but another massive stress on the system. And then I also noticed, again, going back to the organizational systems, without that bird's eye view of data and dates and timelines and things like that, that you can look at in a snapshot, there were some triennial evaluations that in fact were never planned. So by design, they should be planned by the team a year in advance, conducted over the course of that year, and then reviewed. And there were a few that were never planned. And I do think that is also the impact of the rollout of CT sets, which perhaps if I had been in charge of it, which I wasn't asked to be, it would have gone a little smoother. So it's just, you know, the convergence of a lot of pressures. So that's all happening right now. The good news is all of these problems are extremely solvable, but it will take time. I think to your point, you know, it takes time to kind of clean up those processes. It doesn't happen on day one. So that's taking a lot of time and attention. And then we do obviously have all of these openings. I don't know if you sent out that update to the group and they were able to see the progress that we've made as a department since I sent out my letter last week to families, just looking to provide some transparency and some updates. You
So
know,
we can
it shouldn't be a mystery, right? When we have these openings and it's an impact, it shouldn't be a mystery to everyone. So that's why I sent that out. And then today we put together an update for you because we have managed to make some pretty good progress on several of those positions, at minimum providing some temporary coverage that is qualified. And I think, again, you heard tonight, I can only repeat the challenges in special education between all of the field being one big giant shortage area, whether it's speech paths, school psychs, special ed teachers, paraprofessionals, behavior techs, BCBAs. All of those independently are severe shortage areas in the state and across the nation. And then, of course, there are local pressures like us competing in the same candidate pool with other districts that are offering, you know, better compensation packages. So kind of here's our update.
We didn't send this to you yet because we worked on it today. I did email back and forth with you, Jeff, earlier, but we've updated that since then. And this memo includes a list of the open positions, why they're open, because some of them are last minute changes or new students and so on. I mean, the biggest factor is we had a lot of turnover at the end of last year. A lot of special education staff left the district for a variety of reasons. And these are the open positions, why they're open and how we're covering those positions.
Yeah.
So where it says contracted services, we've already contracted for those services, even though we know we're gonna have people coming in late September, early October.
Correct. So I have been pretty successful at negotiating contracts where the agency understands that once I'm able to fill that position permanently, I'll no longer need that to be in that contract. You know, they don't like to do that. They really want commitment for a full year and a commitment to their staff. The other pressure is, of course, even the contracting agencies are competing for the exact same pool of candidates. So everyone is competing for this very small candidate pool, all including us. We're all competing for the same people. So where I've been able to secure some contracted services as a temporary stopgap, I've done that. We're going to continue to try to fill positions with permanent district employees. And of course, we will only do that when the candidates are high quality and we feel, you know, confident in those hires.
But all these that say contracted services, we could put a check
You
mark
can
next.
check that off.
Check
Yes.
those off that.
Now, where it says contracted services and continuing to pursue. So for example, 2 pre-K paras, I have covered some of that. So there's one pre-K para I've secured through a contracted service. And I'm still negotiating, waiting for a handful of agencies who are in the process of hiring. They're like, we would love to offer you a contract, hold on, while we go fill our own internal position with the person that you're also competing to attract. So that's, I mean, that is what it is right now. I have, for the past 2 summers, gone to the, the Council of Exceptional Children and the Council for Administrators of Special Education hold a joint legislative summit every summer in DC. And for the past 2 summers, I have gone there and lobbied on the Hill for the shortage area issue. So met with our state representatives up on the Hill because this is obviously such an urgent issue. So I figured I'd better show up. So I did. So, you know, that doesn't solve our problem locally. I'm working on that too. Any questions about any of this? Or anything else related to special education? It's okay
Jason
if
said
the
you
answer is
just-
no.
Jason said you did impressions. Did you do an impression of Jason?
Oh, no, but my Siri does, because my Siri voice is the Australian male. So when I ask it what the weather is, Jason's voice comes out my lips.
It's hot. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're glad to
Thank
hear.
you. Thank you. I'm very
Thank you. Okay, we know how Ms. Scrofani likes introduction. Maybe we're not gonna get the same round of applause. We'll see. Would you like to provide an overview of finances and the health report?
Sure, let's pass.
Hi,
out.
Nancy.
We have that.
No, you can possibly. Yeah, I think that. Go ahead, possibly. Yes. Is that, it's an Easton interview, right?
Yeah, are you going to put up? You're getting out the object summary, is that what you're handing out?
Well, they're handing that out, but I think
Yes,
we're handing that out, but I really think we should focus on this.
yes, if you could put that on the screen, that would be
Yeah.
fantastic. Okay, so if you can click on just the updated end of year, that would be good, or I suppose you could start with the other one.
Yes. So while that's interesting, we're just gonna talk a little bit about
This will
end of
be
year
much more
first.
interesting for you.
Okay, yeah, we haven't, we haven't
Will
closed the
you
book.
make it
That's
a little
right,
bit
yeah.
bigger?
Well, if I make
For the
it,
table in the back?
I can make it-
The important part there is if you scroll down a little bit, scroll down, okay. I projected that the remaining funds for the town were estimated, you could blow that up a little bit after beginning, at four.
I can't get it.
I'm feeling good about this because at 438,000, that's what I estimated. So now you can go to the next slide if you'd like.
Okay,
The
so
next tab down
we
at the
showed you this tab,
Yes,
if you remember, at the end of
at the end of
June.
June.
And we talked about, these are the things we were focusing on.
Focusing on what I thought where I thought we were gonna end up. So let's talk about the middle column first. So in column D, I still have some encumbered funds for some unfinished or open POs. So some equipment has still not arrived because of supply chain issues. So that's about $1,000 worth. I have a final bill for some disposal services, AKA dumpsters. So that I approximately $806. And then some final telecommunications bill that I estimate will be that has not come in as a final invoice.
So all you have left is a rounding error.
Well, in transportation, we have deadhead miles, and I want to make sure that I have the opportunity to really, so what that means is that when we have a bus that's empty and it goes from one place to the other to the depot, we get a credit for that. Mr. D'Agostino and I have been working to make sure that we have those numbers, and so we have not paid the final invoices for that because we would like to look at it together one more additional time. So that's the 31,000. Do a lot of anything else there? I think that covers it. And then for our medical encumbrance, that is the amount that we encumbered for our medical in the 270, 271 line. So when you go and you take a look at your budget object summary, that's where that's the total of the medical.
Which is 523 or the four number?
Which is 523. However, when we do our healthcare analysis, if you go to column A, down towards the bottom, the board voted to have a starting balance for our health contribution of 850. So I have all the final numbers now, and so our bank balance as of 6:30 is 421, 299. So although I have encumbered 523, 445, I'm not using all of that encumbrance, because in order to have the 850, the health contribution needs to be 428, 701. So that's how those two sort of columns tie in together. And then if you scroll back up
Hold
again.
on, before we go off of that, are we
Yep.
still in healthcare? Or are we moving to something else?
Well, we can go back to healthcare too. I shared with you a new template. We'll bring that up also.
But. Okay, it doesn't matter sort of, but what's the difference other than 100,000 between the 523 and the 428? Because we, in order to get to an 850 starting balance, July 1st, we overspent our budget. Our budget was 2.2 million last year and we spent 2.3 or whatever, in order to get to an 850.
In order to get to that 850.
Right. When we started the year at $1 million, so we're still lower than where we started, but we're.
But
it
we're,
ain't it.
but we're,
So I don't understand the 523, I guess.
Why did we encumber 523?
Right.
we encumber the full lines every year. So if you take a look at your, if you go to 270, 271, we actually take and encumber,
The whole budget,
we encumber the whole amount
the whole budget.
and the whole budget, and then we draw down from that periodically during the course of the year.
Right, and that's the
And,
difference.
and
Yep.
so that's the difference. So so for this year, as an example, we'll encumber that full amount. Although I would like to anticipate that we will not have to use that full amount.
Right.
Does that,
Well. It's fine, it doesn't matter. I still don't understand where the 523 came from. You're saying that's the balance to encumber the entire budget, but we overspent our healthcare budget last year. So in theory,
so there are different pieces of that, of 270 and 271. So that's the remaining amount in those lines, because it also includes medical in lieu, and then it also includes some, so it's not just so those 270, 271 lines are not a straight comparison of exactly what you would consider
the budget.
the budget for health, exactly for healthcare, because if you, Dr. Mahaney, if you pull up let me share it with you, so it'll pop up right away.
What you're saying is when you add 270 and 271 together, it actually equals more than our overall budget because it has some other things in it.
Because it has some other things in it.
Okay.
HSA,
So so here. So as I was thinking about, so Randy asked me to take a look at and present some ideas. We talked about a different healthcare report as well. If we take a look at our budget planning and we go to our district-wide tab,
Did you share anything with me yet?
I did. Should come up.
Is this what you shared?
It's just our budget, yeah. We click on the district-wide.
Yeah. Hold
Okay, so scroll down a bit. So you can see that we actually have medical insurance, then we have medical payments in lieu, and then we have other payments. We scroll down a little bit more. And we have that for both our certified and our uncertified staff. And so when we look at those, the way that e-finance pulls all those numbers, that's where you're, I think, seeing the difference between those lines. So I'm trying to break that out a little bit differently to make it more clear.
okay,
But that's I think what you're seeing.
okay,
So we actually encumber all of that. everything in the 270 and the 270 and the 271, even though it does include some other things.
Okay.
And if you'd like, I can create a sub-report next time that walks through.
No, I don't want you to make any more. I mean, I want everybody to, like, we budget 2.2 million. We have $850,000 in the bank already. So we have $3 million, 3.1 million to spend on healthcare this year. How do we do each month? HSA is another column, contributions from the teachers,
So,
policy, so all that stuff weighs in there and it doesn't match up. I get that, but
will you pull up the next thing that I shared with you?
Okay.
It's called, employee benefits account report. And I think the top of it, Randy, will be helpful.
I don't want, yeah, okay.
Okay.
I thought this would be really helpful to give you a clear picture if you scroll to the top there. Yes.
So this is the new
Oh,
format.
no,
This
keep
is-
going,
Yeah, keep
right
going.
there, right
So-
there.
Yeah.
This is what I think Randy is looking for.
Yes.
He's
Right.
looking
And
for
it-
the certified, the non-certified, and the beginning balance that's available for claims.
Hmm.
So I think that this, so we could tweak this format a little bit, but I think this is what you're asking. And then we can track this a little bit differently than how we have kind of done it in the past. So that it's not just pulling from those 270, 271 lines.
It's actually gonna tick and tie.
Well, it will, but then you also have contributions from the employees and then you have HSA leaving. And so even though we have 3.1 million, that's not the right number either, but this is, I personally, this is gonna help me, but it may not help anybody else yeah, this is great. Okay.
So I'll share this with you all electronically and you can take a look at it and
That'd be
then
great.
give me some feedback
That'd be great, yeah.
as to how this report could be changed to be more transparent and more helpful for you in decision
Anything to make
making.
it more transparent.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Super.
So that is the,
Well, let's just go
Oh,
back
so-
to this for a second and this in column G.
so in column G, so my estimated return to the town is 414, 191.07. With the caveat that we are finalizing what's in that encumbered column. So it will not be less than that, but it could potentially be slightly more.
There was a 600 number in August.
There was.
Here's your end of year in August.
And that was your ending year, that was your ending
Oh,
end
not
of year. in
That was
August.
June.
That was June.
Yeah.
Projected end of year 430.
That was in June.
That was in June.
Okay.
And then the August one was like 640 or something. Just a couple
Not
hundred,
to exceed 60.
Tahiti trip for Mike and
Mostly it's just, we have some transportation and some fluctuations
Did
and,
we
and
have,
some different things that just came in and out,
and did
so.
we have June at the end of June?
And we did not have June at the end of June.
So the June claims were higher. So
they were hired by about 100, yeah.
They were hired by about
But
100. We also had some additional costs that were for some special education.
I was surprised to see the 6 in August. I was like, wow.
I was hoping that it was gonna be 6 in August.
Yeah.
We had some contracted services that we hadn't had final invoices for, some things like that, that I was hoping.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So that's essentially where we are. Thank you.
I'll wait for the questions on the board installations. Promethean board installations, and did we actually spend 275 and I'll wait for that.
So I can answer
Oh,
that now.
yeah, go ahead.
We absolutely spent 275. So we actually were a little bit under budget for our 275 for our Busonics, and that is because we were able to offset some of the boards, $12,000 worth approximately over at Samuel Staples with a special education grant allocation. So we had budgeted for those special education boards. And then we decided that we were going to have this project. And so we captured those funds we captured those funds and applied that to the 275 and brought that down, brought that down a little bit.
Mhm.
So we are under budget when it came to purchasing all the ViewSonic boards, I am happy to say.
Yeah.
And we also purchased keyboards to go along with those as well. So when you look at that sort of technology bundle, those things came within those numbers.
Okay.
Is Mike going to talk about installation?
And that did include the installation. We're gonna talk about installation. If the presentation does not answer your questions sufficiently, I'm happy to,
No, I
we
got it.
can
That's
dive
good.
into that a little bit more as
I mean,
well.
what I thought we were shooting for having everything fully operational first day of school, bang. And that didn't happen, which is too bad, but when will it happen?
So every classroom has a board. Every classroom is up, ready to go and working and functional. And I believe we only had a few boards that were not 100% during that very first day or week of school that did not have the Chrome boxes. So there are kind of two pieces to it. And so one of them is the actual board itself.
Right.
And then we also decided that it would be wise to have the enhanced features of the Chrome box with the ViewSonics. And so while the boards were 100% at the very beginning of the school year, the Chrome boxes themselves, some of those came in a little bit later. So the Chrome box is for more of the sort of phase 2 anyway, for kind of more the advanced features, but all the boards are up, installed, happening in the rooms.
Just a caveat to that.
Yeah.
The boards are all functioning and working. However, we're still having some kinks when it comes to casting to the board wirelessly. And so some teachers are still plugging in cords and cables and so on. And so you can see here, for example, I can pull up a window to cast to this board. And obviously there's a lot of autonomy and freedom when you can kind of cast a better cord. So it's not without challenges. We're still working on getting every board up and running the way we want it to run.
Okay.
There's administrative reports.
Yeah, so the keyboards will also allow for the same kind of mobility
We're a
too.
little bit over.
Oh, sorry.
You're
Schedule.
doing great, thank you. The board.
Any questions for Sarah?
Any other?
No, the boards look really beautiful. And same with Staples. And the teachers back to Meet Your Teacher Day. Every room I walked in, every teacher was very excited about it.
Yeah.
So, good job.
I don't know if this is a Sarah question or a Mike question, but has the work begun or is it finished at Samuel Staples to reconfigure the cafeterias to make it a easier place to do business?
Oh, all the cafeteria stuff. I'll let you speak to that.
So, yeah, we're still kind of working on that and looking at it, but yes, plans still are to move forward with that. Again, I think just to explain further what we experienced a little bit with the ViewSonics supply chain issues when, those Chrome boxes didn't come. We actually did very well. A lot of school districts who tried to do what we successfully did this summer, do a full implementation, and we were actually highly successful compared to most districts. Again, you get all your boards, you get everything installed, you're waiting for certain parts, you're waiting for Chrome boxes, you're waiting for mounts, things we had slight hiccups, but I think overall everything did work out really, really well. Same thing with our kitchen equipment. We did very well, and I'll give you a more complete update, when we get into the facilities one, but we actually did really well, replaced ovens, replaced chiller equipment, did really, really well. But that complete revamping, is gonna take just a little more time.
Okay, so what has been done is kind of behind the curtain, so to speak. And in terms of the student interaction, and reconfiguring that hasn't happened yet.
That has not happened yet.
Okay.
But it will. We'll invite you to lunch.
I'm good.
Well,
I'm good.
Treat.
I'm good.
Okay,
Ready?
we're going to go on to discussion. Okay.
Yeah.
So this item on the agenda is just a brief overview of how we open school.
We skipped board committee reports. Oh,
Oh, shoot, sorry, John. Yeah, board committee reports.
no.
The curriculum committee met right before this meeting. So Dr. Kristen, you've all reviewed the 5-year plan. We're gonna talk, we talked about the Amplify pilot for K-5, and just got some updates on the very, very beginnings of Desmos in middle school, but most of it was centered around curriculum, the 5-year curriculum plan and priorities for this year.
Fantastic. All right. Moving right along. Item 7 on the agenda.
Okay, so you've already heard from Steve and Kim that open school did go well. There are a lot of pictures you can, if you're following my Instagram account, then you would have seen those pictures. Please do. We're close to almost 2,000 followers, only 48 more, and we'll bring the kangaroo back. The first couple of schools were really exciting for the kids, and our teachers did an amazing job. We really should bring you in so that you can see this next year, because some of you came to convocation, and I know that we talk about this a little bit during this first board meeting, but just once you should see the first couple of days of school, because it is absolutely kind of amazing, just the atmosphere. There's a picture of a board working in a classroom right there. Yep, there's some pictures of Helen Keller Middle School, and the kids are really excited to come back. This is actually a picture on the right of some different furniture options in the cafeteria, which the students all gravitate to and they really enjoy. We sent a survey after the first 3 days of school. Maybe you responded to the survey, but we essentially asked, how were the first day of school for your students? 48.3% said excellent, 42% said very good, 6.5% said fair, and my other category was hoping for better days ahead. And that was about 2% of people that responded. The overall survey was 691 responses, which is a great sample size. And the most important thing about this survey is not really the pie chart. We asked parents provide positive feedback, which I can show you some sample examples. But we also said, if things aren't going smoothly, so if you were in the fair to hoping better days ahead, tell us why. And so we did do that, and I shared that raw data with the principals and basically said, if a family member shared their name, which we encouraged them to do if you shared something that you needed addressed, we encouraged our administrators to reach out to that family. So if someone said something like, we're hoping for better days ahead because my child sat by themselves and didn't have any friends on the first day of school, and we shared that with a counselor or a social worker, we can make a contact and we can get that addressed. There were lots of comments about, well, I can share some of the comments. So these are some of the positive comments: great communication, everything seemed to go smoothly, well organized, stress-free, and so on. Settled into new classrooms, morning drop-off went pretty well. There's a comment halfway down that says bus times erratic but understandable for the first few days, and so on. There's a couple of comments in specifically about Reading bus routes, an uneventful transition into high school, because this survey was for all schools. We were able to disaggregate, but you're seeing all the comments here as well. Here are some of the constructive feedback. The bus is always late in the morning. contact the bus company, see if you can do something there. Here's an example of the student, not finding someone to eat. There's a question about, do we owe money because we didn't order lunch? Communication about homework assignments. Removed me from my wrong person. Good to know. I don't know how that happens. There's a question here about after school activities and love for my child to be more involved. And then really, it's been 3 days, check out there. So that was the first few days of school. It was positive, and we did have some issues, but we kind of created a mechanism to kind of to target that. So that was the first agenda item. We're going to the next one?
Yes, please.
Okay. The next agenda item is around,
Kindergarten enrollment.
yes, kindergarten enrollment. So there's a change for the kindergarten minimum age starting next school year. And the Connecticut General Assembly responded to a public act. The public act basically says that children will need to turn 5 on or before September 1st of the school year in order to be eligible. Right now, that benchmark is January 1. But the legislation allows for a school district to admit a child who has not turned 5 by September 1 if the parent makes a request in writing and if the school conducts an assessment to determine the developmental readiness for that child. So one of the things that we're working with the state is getting guidance around what that assessment looks like. And we're hoping that there's some type of consistent assessment that all districts can use, or maybe there's autonomy around what some norms are for how we slide the benchmark. So the purpose of this presentation isn't for you to take any action tonight. It's just making you aware of the minimum age for kindergarten has changed. And one of the things that we have to do is study what that impact looks like over the next 2 months, communicate this to families, and get back to you about what that potentially looks like in terms of this assessment and so on. And so these are the next steps. We'd like to form a little study group, consult with the state and districts around us. That should say review space over at Samuel Staples, but obviously we did this presentation over at RES. This is data from Samuel Staples, and Kim and her team shared birth dates. And really the important thing here to recognize is that these represent all the current birth dates of children currently in this cohort of students. We don't know the birth dates coming in of next year because so many students are in pre-K and they're not here yet. But this is a realistic sample size of what we could expect for next year's kindergarten class. And so what this legislation is looking at is it really affects these students in this category. And so the reason why we chose to do it in a bar chart is you can see where the median is in terms of how many students and generally how old they are. But these are the students we're really talking about. And you can see how many students there are at the end of that, the tail end of the year.
So the students in yellow, whatever the count is there, they're currently 4 years old in kindergarten.
Yes, and students all the way to the left are 6.
Right.
So this is actually, that's another good point. And when I did this graph, when I did this chart, I was mostly creating the chart for the purposes of looking at the tail end.
Yeah.
Right. But then I realized, wow, just a reminder, we have 6-year-olds and 4-year-olds in a kindergarten class.
Yeah, I actually do this every single year at my kindergarten orientation because I have the current class.
Right.
And I do 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and 4-year-olds. Because there's always parents in the audience who are wrestling with that decision, do I send my 4-year-old or not?
Right.
And every year it looks exactly the same.
Right.
There's always a handful of 6-year-olds, they're boys, whose parents have decided to pull them back to their late fall birthday.
Of course, yeah.
And they're being compared with these 4-year-olds who were born so late in the fall. And these kids are sizably bigger and older. And it's a very, very tough comparison for these kids. And tiny little babies coming in, playing on the playground is very difficult for them.
Yeah, wait until they get on the field.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is a really good chart because we're going to have to think about what are we doing with these 18 to 20 students. In Reading, it was 30 students,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Wow. So
Yeah.
are we, are we going to pass them forward and just say, listen, come to kindergarten? Because the intent of this state legislation was to, admittedly, was to phase it back month by month. But they actually went back to September 1st. So are we going to have come when you're ready? But either the decision is going to impact the size of our pre-K program and the size of our kindergarten classrooms. And it could have budget impacts, and obviously it has family impacts. Most importantly, it could have family impacts, right? Because it's not like we have a lot of pre-K programs in the area where it could impact families in terms of paying for pre-K, or it could impact in terms of space. And remember, every school around us is looking at this, right? So does that further make those spots less available?
When it doesn't impact the number of people who redshirt, like who hold their kids
Right.
a year.
Makes it easier, right?
Maybe, I mean, it's interesting because like people don't behave like in a normal way, because you could be like, oh, well, now the state's made it easier for me because September 1's the date, but it's also like, oh, September 1's the date, so now I have a kid who is a August birthday, and I would have always said that.
August is the new December.
Correct, so
Right.
I don't think I think the behavior doesn't actually change much.
Yeah,
So
it
like
shifts
what will
back.
be interesting,
Yeah.
right, you actually could get with more 6-year-olds now in kindergarten.
Right.
Which is,
Interesting.
But ultimately, we don't know the answer to this, like you and I talked about this, so
That's right.
that whether we can just wave them in as we've done. If the parent thinks that their son or daughter is ready and you do, have at it. 4 years old, come on in.
I think the spirit of this is that they really do want to start honoring that September 1 cutoff point, because Connecticut does have one of the youngest age requirements to come into public education. But that doesn't mean that we do this next year. We could take a phased in approach, and we can wait to see what the state does as well. But the purpose of this conversation is just to make you aware, to look at the numbers, and to get back to you in 6 to 8 weeks with some guidance for you.
You said the state. What problem are they addressing?
Connecticut is one of the few states that has such a young entrance into kindergarten.
most states have an August or September date, and actually, when you actually look at assessment scores and performance, younger kids, kids who started kindergarten younger, I'm saying this is a mom who just sent her 4-year-old to kindergarten, actually tend to do worse. So it actually, data-wise, is a really good
It
choice.
says, wait.
You should wait, like, right, because it's a developmental
Right.
choice, and so age actually matters when you look at large groups of data.
So, no decision yet. We just have to share this with the community. So we could probably take some of these slides, put it in a communication, send this out and say, stay tuned, we're going to be studying this soon. Okay. Any other questions about that?
No, sir.
Okay, then now we can talk a little bit about building projects and updates. We've talked a little bit about the ViewSonic project, but we can talk about other projects. And Mike, this is the presentation. Here we go. And I'm just going to turn it over to you, mate.
Okay, great, thanks. Did you refresh, like, did anything,
Refresh. Can refresh for you.
great, thank you. Okay, so this is a brief update of our ViewSonic project, as I gave you a brief overview before, but again, I think everything went really well this summer. Special thanks to Jeff Bradbury for his work to arrange this project, and to all of our building administrators for all their patience and collaboration to get all the work done in a timely fashion. As I said before, many school districts have been moving in this direction, looking to implement, interactive whiteboards and, in their schools throughout the summer. We were very fortunate to get all the boards in, all the old boards disposed of, recycled or repurposed. All the brackets, everything hung, rooms cleaned, floors cleaned, everything working. Again, few hiccups, certain accessories, you know, Chromebox, certain things that didn't come, but I think overall we did very, very well. And I do want to thank, again, the staff and the custodial staff, especially for their hard work. So just a few pictures, pictures usually are something that can give you a, you know, a better feel of exactly what we did. We also, so if you see that one board there with the, well, that's got an up, down, no, that's, right, that's the science room with the chalkboard behind it. And that's one of the boards that one of the rooms that we have behind you, those are a whiteboard overlay skins that will go on top of those chalkboards. So we use what's called an over the top up down bracket system on that board so that the board can be removed. We can put the whiteboard skin on there and that can go back, and then the teacher will have a nice whiteboard for instructional purposes as
Kind of like
well.
that. It'll look
It will
similar.
look very similar to that. Thank you, Dr. McKinnon.
You're welcome.
Yes. And again, just a few pictures to show those boards. You can just keep going through. Okay, so again, I don't know if there's other questions on the boards. Very straightforward. The old boards were recycled when they could be. They were discarded when they had no value, no recycling, no ability to recycle them, and were repurposed when they could be reused. So everything was done very efficiently. And again, few hiccups, but I think everything went very well. But happy to answer any questions if you have them on the ViewSonics before I move on to everything else. No. Okay, so we did have a very busy summer at both schools. Lots of projects going on. There's a rooftop view. One of the issues we tried to address at Helen Keller, something that we will speak about in depth with facilities at some point in the near future, but the condition of the roof is suspect. It's nearing the end of its useful life, and replacement is something that the board is going to need to consider in the near future. For now, what we want to do, again, we appreciate the funding from the board to allow us to do some much needed repairs and to try to address some of the problem areas of the gutters. Again, we took in a priority approach, and Dr. Clapp helped out to kind of address the areas that impacted students the most, and you know, efforts to keep, you know, the majority of the overshoot water, which is one of the big issues that we have here. The gutters are lower than probably they should be, and a lot of times in heavy rain, the water shoots right over the top of them. Also, there's gravel, which was affected at one point during snow removal, and it becomes loose and fills the gutters. So we did a lot of work to repair those roofs and to install a copper gutter edge on the front as a precaution to kind of prevent that that overflow. So if you go a little further, Dr. McKinnon. So now you can see what the gutter was before without that front edge, and then with that front edge again, that copper edge is just meant to keep that overshoot from the water shooting right over the gutter and kind of divert it into the gutter. Keep going, Dr. McKinnon. We did get everybody involved. As you can see, we had Director of Finance up on the roof. Yes, and helping to assess and see the conditions, which again, it's something that I've been impressed with since I've been at central office. The involvement of everybody there is quite impressive. So, on the left, you can see, that is, above the cafeteria. That's somewhere, here that we had, leaking issues for quite some time. We were able to, remove a lot of the gravel and water test it, and we're able to determine that a lot of the water was coming in through the side panels, and we're able to seal that, and I think we did very well in the last rainstorm, so everything has been really good with that. Moving forward. We also did some PD for our maintenance staff, so I was able to arrange to bring in a roof consultant who showed us techniques for quick repairs. Again, I don't think as a district we want to have custodians turning into roofers, but oftentimes we do find ourselves in a position where there's a rainstorm or there's an event, and we need to react quickly, in advance of bringing in a professional roofer. So I think it was very helpful. The roofing consultants did come in, they provided coffee, which was a big benefit for everyone, and they gave great instruction on how to do some quick repairs, and also some repairs that could be longer term that might save us money moving forward. So
I don't think I've ever seen that in a district that I've worked in, where we brought in professional development for custodians on something. This is amazing.
Yeah. Well,
It's great.
yeah, it was great. Okay, and so before I do the thanks, I'll go over a lot of the other projects that we handled. I think I said to you, we put all new compressors and equipment in the chillers at Samuel Staples. So the walk-in coolers and everything have all new compressors, all new equipment inside there. We also did some work on automated controls at Samuel Staples on one of the units, and fixed a couple of valves. And then over there, of course, also the ViewSonic installation. Here at Helen Keller, we did the repairs to the replacement of the windows here in the library. Also in both schools, I think some quick reaction and response from the maintenance crew. There was an increase in damaged windows from Park and Rec weed whackers this summer. It was almost chronic, and it was impressive that our staff was able to react quickly, and we were able to get everything replaced before the start of school, which again, I think was really great. We did water fountains and bottle fillers here at Helen Keller as well. As I said, the gutter repairs, the whiteboards. We also did a lot of things at central office. We made a special ed director's office. We did office cubicles for additional staff. And we're also piloting a new cloud-based entry protection system. And that's kudos to Sarah Scrifani for getting us the school security grant money that is going to help us to implement this system if we're happy with it in all our schools in our district. So really something great. So overall, I think again, working to kind of build a team and better collaborate with the administration and increase our communications and again, a special thanks to the Easton community and the Board of Education for their overwhelming support for our infrastructure and our instructional enhancements for our students, and Dr. McKinnon, Dr. Pearson Ugal, Sarah, and Kim Fox Santoro, and Dr. Clapp, Michael Bronstein, and more, and Jeff Bradbury, and the entire staff really for all their work on these summer projects, and of course, custodial staff for their amazing efforts. One of the things I did want to mention that I've been really impressed with, going from a board member to being a member of central office staff and understanding the hierarchy and how team building really is something that starts at the top. And so, again, I was very impressed with Dr. McKinnon and the presentation during convocation. If you didn't get a chance to see it on the 300-inch screen at the Barlow Auditorium, it was quite impressive. So if we can go to the next slide, Dr. McKinnon. There's Dr. McKinnon.
That's why you didn't share it with.
Giving his presentation at convocation, which was great, and the convocation cup, which again was won by Barlow. That's not a bias by me, but it was won by the Barlow staff. But it was really a great kickoff to the school year. And again,
Yeah, carrying the,
and again, I can't stress the importance of how team building really starts at the top. And so next slide, please.
absolutely. What are you working on then?
New office.
So that is that central office. And again, that is the level of involvement of the staff. Sarah's on the roof. Dr. McKinnon's on the floor, screwing studs. Dr. Pearson Ugal is slaving away in her office as well. So, but again, kudos to everybody for a successful start to the school year. So thank you.
Here.
Very nice.
Well.
Get that picture for the Instagram account.
You should. Now, you know what? Mike did not share this presentation with me today, and I kept on saying, where's the presentation we need to look at before the board meeting? And now I know why, because you added those photos in. But I think we also should thank Mike, because what the pictures don't show are all the Saturdays and Sundays that he put in, actually that Sarah put in, and Stephanie put in. This summer was so busy, and we worked on weekends. But Mike has been a great addition, because he's brought a new perspective to facilities management, which you heard, but he's also extremely hands-on, which I know that the custodians and our maintenance team are learning from him, because he is building walls and building cubicles and painting and spackling and hanging up whiteboards and hanging up TVs. And we did a huge project over at RES where we had over 30 pallets of furniture delivered, which included new lockers, and those lockers had to be installed and fastened to the wall. And Mike was doing professional development for our custodians in order for that to happen. So the big difference for us to have you on the team, because you provide us with so much more support. So thank you.
Here.
And food services and buses.
Mike,
Question.
I didn't hear anything about the water heaters.
Oh, so, yeah.
Hey, were you up there, Kim?
It's so exciting that I almost, couldn't sleep, but yeah, so the water heaters, we did, 2 at Samuel Staples and then replaced the 1 at, here at Helen Keller. And that's, again, that was something I detailed at our last meeting, that we were able to use food service money to kind of enhance the money that we already had allocated by the board. So yes, water heaters are brand new. So that's, and we were able to also replace the recirculating pump and get that working at Samuel Staples, so that we can have hot water quicker down in the kitchen, which is something that it's really essential. So yeah.
Very good, thank you.
Just very quick, any impact from the water main break?
It made for some exciting bus emails and some interesting phone calls, and the chance for me to meet many parents, which was, exciting and welcoming. But no, I think we got through it fairly well. And again, kudos to Public Works and the police and the staffs in both schools to be able to react quickly. I think, again, we did well. And one thing we haven't really mentioned is we we made it through a severe heat wave. Without closing school, without really impacting instruction. When, if you notice the surrounding districts, many surrounding districts were forced to close early. And so we were able to continue to provide services, and it was really
We
good.
did, we did use a new communication system during that emergency. And we got some pretty good feedback about how parents felt the communication was handled on that day. Like that was we talked as a team that we had to dismiss schools around 9 a.m. and we dismissed around 10:30 and parents came. And so these were the messages that we sent out. And so the first message actually included a picture of where the area was
Yes, that's-
affected. Did that actually,
That's my street right there.
is that your street?
Really?
Yeah.
I was supposed to know that it wasn't like at the school though.
Is it Sturbridge? What's
Sturbridge, yeah.
Sturbridge, okay.
Yeah,
And so then you would have seen these pictures.
Yes.
yeah, some of those are mine.
Incredible. Oh my God.
Really?
That might be me. It's not. Right. That's,
Yeah, it's incredible.
I'm just amazed that we got back to school today.
I know,
I know. And passing.
and they got, there's asphalt down as of today. Like
Really?
asphalt as of today, when we're flying, yeah.
Wow.
We're not flying, but any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Jeff. Second.
Thank you.
Okay.